Welcome back with a smiley face. A link of previous episodes is provided into the description of the video. You can also join us on Patreon to listen more unlimited audiobooks like this. You can also visit and shop our ebooks. His Revenge to Restitution. Episode 10. Chapter 68 to 73. His Revenge to Restitution. Chapter 68. Axel. Lemon recorded receipts in her book at the counter while I sat on the couch flipping through a magazine. I had no idea what was on any of the pages because my eyes hadn't left her since we finished lunch. She kept looking over at me too, blushing, then her eyes would go right back to her book. Tomorrow, I was taking her out on our first official date. I knew that we had basically been dating this entire time with all the time we spent together, but this would be better. I was taking her to the city for the night, and I was determined to kiss her before the night's end. I held off, for now, letting her have control, but I needed to taste her soon. I would show her an amazing time, then blow her mind before I dropped her home. My phone rang in my pocket, and I fished it out, answering without looking. Axel, Luna's voice said. She sounded uneasy. Luna, I said, sitting up straighter. Vampires are attacking the pack, she said quickly. Her voice was commanding, but there was no calm in it. I need you to make sure the town is safe and get here if you can. We need all the help we can get. Understood, I said. I stood to my feet, discarding the magazine and hanging up the phone. Lemon was looking at me with questioning eyes. I started sending out messages to everyone with instructions. Come on, you're going to my house, I told her. Wait, why? She asked, forgetting about her work. She turned to me as I came to the counter. The pack is being attacked. I need to get you safe so I can go help, I told her quickly. Attacked? By who? She continued to question. I can't leave the inn. I sighed. By vampires, I told her quietly. Her eyes got impossibly wide. Yes, like the ones that came here and attacked you. So far, they haven't come to town, so I need to go to the pack and stop them before they can. Axel, I can't just leave the inn. There are guests here and employees, she said, looking toward the stairs. Fine, I'll send someone here to keep an eye on things. Don't let anyone leave, keep everyone inside, okay? She nodded her head slowly. I turned on my heel and headed to the door, wasting no more time. Wait, she called out. I looked back at her. Her eyes were misty, and she was biting her lip. Axel, you have to come back, she said softly. I'll be back as soon as I can, I told her. I wasn't going to let anything separate us. I wasn't going to let the vampires stop me from getting back here when I just finally got her to agree to be mine. No, you have to come back because I think I'm falling in love with you, she whispered, but I heard her loud and clear. I think my heart stopped at her words. Her hand came up to cover her mouth, and I could see her cheeks getting red. She didn't mean to say that out loud, but it was the best accident ever. I flipped around and closed the distance between us in a few long strides. Lemon looked up at me with wide, doe eyes as she slowly lowered her hand from her mouth. I grabbed her face, threading my fingers through the soft hair at the nape of her neck. Her breath hitched, and I pulled her to me. I crashed my mouth over hers in a heated kiss. She was frozen for a minute before she kissed me back. Her lips felt like magic on mine, and I was getting drunk on the feeling. Finally, I pulled away, and she was breathing hard. I'll be back to make sure you finish falling, I said softly before turning and leaving the inn. I went around back, straight to the trees with more determination than minutes before. No vampire was going to keep me from getting back to my girl. Aelia. Quinn and Lily were waiting around for me. Quinn brought some of her work to show Lily and me, and I was dying to read it. I couldn't imagine how she wrote about wolves and got away with it. I finished signing all the tax documents for Lemon and shoved them back in the envelope so they could be sent back over to the inn. I sighed, tucking my hair behind my ears. I sifted through my to-do pile, making sure there was nothing left of immediate importance. Aelia, Liam's voice sounded in my head. He didn't sound normal, he was alert and panicky. Vampires are attacking our pack. Please stay with Felix. I sent Austin to get my mom and the kids. Maddox is with Missy, but I'll get to her, too. I stopped moving entirely. Vampires were here? I looked at Felix, who looked to be linking someone else himself. My mind immediately went into action. Okay, I'll call Axel so he can make sure everyone in town is protected and get here to help, I told him. The town sat in between us and Warwick, which is why Maddox landed there before getting to the Packland when he returned with Langston. If vampires came from Warwick's hiding spot, then the town could be attacked as well. I love you, little Luna. That sounded like goodbye. I didn't like my mate saying goodbye. And I love you, my alpha. Come back to me. I looked to Felix, trying to prioritize everything in my head. Austin was on his way to the kids, and I knew he would get them and Lissa back to the pack house. Axel needed to be informed in case any vampires came close to town. Missy and Maddox were at home, and Liam would get to them. Damian was with Liam, so surely he would have told Quinn and Lily to get people inside the pack house. Liam probably already had the warriors in motion to get other pack members here. I picked up my phone and dialed Axel while Felix still looked to be having a conversation. He probably linked Lacey or maybe even Sean. Axel didn't take much explanation before we were off the phone, and I knew he was in motion as well. As I hung up, I looked down at the watch on my wrist. This thing was supposed to level the playing field for me somehow. I wasn't completely helpless now. My gaze moved to Felix. We need to get you to safety, he said. I want to help, I told him. Warwick was here for Liam and me. There was no doubt his strategy would be to kill me in front of Liam before killing him. Luna, we have no idea how we are being attacked, he said. What if this watch is the solution? What if I am the only one that can stop Warwick, Felix? I asked him. His gaze stayed level, not changing, but I knew he was considering my words. Just then, I heard Liam linking again. This time, it wasn't to me but the whole pack. I had no idea he could connect with so many people at once. Felix, get me to Liam, I told him. Help me get to my mate and stop this, sire. Warwick will either send someone here for me or come himself if I am in the pack house. Get me away from everyone we are trying to keep safe. Felix frowned this time. I knew I was right, and he knew it too. A pounding on my door stopped him from responding. He held up a hand to me, telling me to stay put behind my desk. I nodded, my hand moving to the back of my hip where the small dagger was in a sheath. Felix cautiously moved to the door, but his posture relaxed before he opened it. When the door swung open, Azrin appeared in the doorway. Luna, he said, entering my office. I want to get to Liam. I need your help, I pleaded with them. Azrin looked at Felix, clearly questioning my decision. Felix's eyes went wide, and I was worried about his expression for the first time since he was assigned to me. Lacey is going into labor, he whispered. You need to go to her, now, I told him. She needs you. Luna, he said, shaking his head. "No, Felix," I shouted. "Go to Lacey. Azrin will get me to my mate." Felix looked at Azrin, who nodded. Felix sighed. "She's right. If she is here, Warwick will come for her, and that puts everyone here in danger. Get her to Liam," he instructed. Azrin nodded his understanding. "Do not let her get hurt, Azrin. She is your responsibility now." "Felix, get to Lacey," I told him more earnestly this time. He nodded his head and moved swiftly from my office. Azrin turned to me, waiting for instructions. "Liam was down by the training ground with Damian earlier. Warwick will certainly come to the pack house first. He will come straight for me, I know it. I need to get to Liam's side so that I can help him fight Warwick," I told Azrin. His eyes floated down to my wrist. "Has Felix been keeping you updated then?" Azrin nodded. "I hope I have not overstepped. I came to this pack to protect you. I recognize I misstepped previously, but I will not allow you to get hurt because of it." "I'm glad you are here, Azrin," I told him. Knowing that he already knew what had been going on since Robert's death and his dismissal made this easier. If the moon goddess is on our side, then I could stop Warwick with the help of this. But I need to get there, and I have no idea how many vampires we are dealing with." "Understood," Azrin said. "We will move together. You should stay directly behind me but be prepared to run." I nodded. "I can do that," I told him, coming around my desk. I pulled the small knife Felix gave me from its holder, and Azrin chuckled. "Let's hope you don't need that," he said. We exited my office, and I followed his direction, keeping right behind him. As we moved, pack members were rushing up the stairs, heading to the safe room that was in the pack house. Luckily, our safe room took up most of the floor and could accommodate a few hundred people, more if needed. As we hit the ground floor, I could hear warriors shouting directions to others. It didn't sound like we were being assaulted by a mob descending on us because a lot of pack members were being pushed into the pack house doors. My heart clenched, looking at the worried looks of she-wolves holding their pups close as they moved to safety. Fire bloomed in my belly. I would not allow my pack to be hurt like this without repercussion. I grabbed onto the back of Azrin's shirt as we headed out the back door. I didn't want to be separated before we even got out of the pack house. When we got outside, I could see warriors forming a gaping perimeter around the pack house, ushering people to hurry as they headed to us. There wasn't anyone attacking us here yet, but it was only a matter of time. Azrin moved quickly, and I struggled to keep up with him. This was no time to ask him to slow his pace. As we closed in on the warriors standing between us and the path to the training ground, I felt a burning pain rip its way down my spine. "Ah!" I screamed, stumbling. Azrin turned quickly, grabbing me, so I didn't hit the ground. "What's wrong?" he asked quickly. I knew this pain, I felt it before. "Liam," I croaked, trying to push it away. "I need to get to Liam now." This wasn't the plan. Liam wasn't supposed to get hurt and certainly wasn't supposed to be hit with wolfsbane. I knew I could heal him, but it could leave me too weak to do anything about Warwick. I could give the watch to Liam, though. Azrin pulled me to my feet as I breathed through the pain. "Can you move?" he asked. Gritting my teeth, I nodded. We moved again, this time, Azrin staying by my side and much slower. No one tried to stop us or send me back to the pack house to safety. My spine was on fire, and I hoped Liam had someone with him. If Damian ran off to help warriors or go to Lily or the kids, Liam could be in trouble. Azrin smelled it only moments before I did, but I could see multiple vampires as the training ground came into view. Someone was hacking them to bits, and I knew by his size it was Damian. A body sat hunched over on the ground, and I feared it was my mate. After the last vampire dropped, Damian took off. Azrin looked down at me, worried. "I can heal Liam, just get me to him, now," I said. Our pace was gradually slowing as the burning seemed only to grow worse. Azrin nodded before picking me up and throwing me over his shoulder. "Sorry, Luna," he muttered before he started running. He ran the remaining distance to the sparring ring, stopping abruptly before letting me slide down to my feet. I turned, collapsing to my knees, where Liam lay grunting in pain. "I'm here," I told him, grabbing his head in my hands. Damian arrived dripping in blood and holding two deadly-looking axes. "I'm here, Liam, just hold on." Chapter 69. Maddox. We made sure that Emmett's bleeding was controlled. By the time it had mostly stopped, he looked very pale, and his healing didn't seem to be working. Aelia was holding his head in her lap and dressing his wound now that it had stopped bleeding enough to bandage it. The blanket she'd used to staunch the bleeding was soaked, and I was worried about the amount of blood he'd lost. I wondered if he'd been severed from his wolf-like beta Damian, but I didn't want to panic him by bringing it up. We'd covered Sulian with a blanket, and Sol was sobbing over his chest. She was crying so hard that her breath was coming in ragged gasps, and it tore at my heart little by little every time I heard it. She couldn't be consoled, and I didn't blame her. I had accepted the consequences that came with being a warrior already, but my friends didn't sign up for this. This war wasn't being fought a day's drive past town, it was being fought again in our homes. We escaped this once, and now, we would have to face it again. Missy grabbed Julie a blanket and a change of clothes, but it hadn't been very long since we'd finished fighting. Julie was still exhausted, and she was weakly trying to console Sol by rubbing her back as she sat against her grieving friend, clutching the blanket around her. "Your Delta and Gamma will direct your teams. These vampires are here to kill us all, but we will not let them," Liam's voice came through our link. We all looked at each other in confusion. "Alpha could do that? I know he wants us to go to the pack house, but I need to know that my brothers and sister are safe first. I also think we should find my dad and help him. Warwick wants to ruin my dad's life, so he has to be in danger too," Missy insisted. I linked Austin, it's Maddox. I have Missy, and she is safe, but she wants to know where her siblings are before we get everyone to the pack house. Do you have any idea? I took a patrol to Lissa's to get them. When I got here, they had already stopped the first attack but more showed up quickly. I think they are trying to capture the kids for Warwick. Betas are here, too. If you can, get here and help me get them to safety. Lissa is hurt and can't get them all out of here, came his reply. He sounded worried, and I knew the fight wasn't going in our favor. We're on our way. Just hang in there, I told him. They're at Lissa's, and they're fighting vampires they think are trying to take the kids. We need to get over there, now. I explained to Missy. She nodded quickly. I looked around at our friends. They couldn't move right now, so they were probably safer here. Missy made sure everyone had clothes, so I instructed them to get to the pack house as soon as they felt strong enough to move quickly. Julie nodded her understanding as she pushed herself up to pull on the clothes. A few of the vampire bodies still twitched or jerked, and it worried me they weren't entirely dead. There's gas in the shed out back if you are able to burn these before you go. If you see any sign of danger, either get out and into the woods or hide upstairs in our bedroom. Use your best judgment, I told them as they looked at me bleakly. I didn't want to leave our friends, but there wasn't time to get injured people to the pack house and then back to Lissa's to get Missy's siblings. It's fine, you're a real warrior now. You can't stay here with us, Emmett coughed with a small laugh that sounded painful. Don't die, I told him playfully. He annoyed me, but looking at him now, I didn't want to lose my friend. He also seemed less annoying while lying in Ally's lap, not desperately flirting with everyone. She'd refused to move, only letting Missy pull a blanket around her shoulders, so Emmett still blushed every time he looked up at her. Missy pulled me to the door, knowing we couldn't do anything more for them at the moment. All we could do was hope no more vampires came for them. We had to get to Lissa's house now. As we ran, I could feel the anxiety and stress through our bond, and I wished I could hold her right now. The distance flashed by, and we arrived at the home of our former alpha. I could hear the fighting in the back, so we went to the front door knowing Austin would have the kids away from any action. There, we found the kids huddled around Lissa, who sat on the couch with a blanket pulled around her. She didn't look very good, and I could guess what had happened. Little Liam looked up at us, and relief washed over his face as he ran over to hug Missy. They all did. Watching her surrounded by the kids as she comforted them, I couldn't help but think about her with a litter of our pups. I snapped myself away from that happy thought and strode towards the back door to see Austin trying to fight the final remaining vampire. The ground was littered with the bodies of other vampires, and 3 other wolves lay unmoving. Austin's chest was heaving as he tried to fight his opponent, he was slowing, and he was too tired to continue. I felt Missy at my back. I threw the back door open and ran to him, wanting to stop the inevitable, but I wasn't fast enough. Austin fell for a feint and stepped directly into a solid punch that dazed him. As he stumbled back, the vampire wasted no time plunging his teeth into Austin's neck. No! Missy's scream echoed through the backyard, and the total horror, rage, and a mix of other feelings hit me through our bond like a wrecking ball. I didn't even know she'd chased after me until she'd shifted and leapt over me. Her jaws clamped down on the vampire's head and tore him away from Austin. A fountain of blood sprayed from Austin's neck, and I caught him as he fell. I pressed my hand to his neck, trying to staunch the flow of blood, but it didn't matter. The light was gone from his eyes, and he was staring through me. I closed his eyes and laid his head on the ground gently. Looking up, Missy was having trouble finishing the vampire. He had one hand on each side of her jaw and was successfully keeping her from being able to close her mouth fully. He had a grimace on his face. He looked at me pleadingly, "You mind getting her off me? I just came for the puppies. Let me have them, and I'll be on my way. There will be more of us here soon. I won't be the last." He grunted as he resisted my mate's attack. "You'll not be taking the Alpha's children today," I told him fiercely. His stuttering pleas were cut short when I ripped his throat from his neck, ending his resistance to Missy. She dropped the broken body and shifted back. She fell to her knees with tears in her eyes as she looked down at Austin's lifeless body. I gave her a moment to grieve as I kneeled behind her, softly rubbing her back. "Missy. This wasn't happening. Austin was my childhood crush, I never cared that he had a mate. He treated me like a little sister, always humoring me and looking after me when Liam wasn't around. He scolded me for worrying Lee, was there when I needed advice, and now I couldn't bear to look at his lifeless body. My chest hurt, and I couldn't breathe. It felt like when I lost my mom. What did Austin do to deserve this? Any of us? I don't care what grudge Warwick had with our pack in the past, none of us were even alive to participate in it. I was done with this war, done with this pain. I couldn't handle losing anyone else, this was painful enough. I could feel Maddox's hand on my back, and I was grateful for his presence. The calming effect of his touch was probably the only thing keeping me sane right now. First Sulian and now this. We have to get the kids back, I told Maddox, standing suddenly. I couldn't sit here anymore, I needed to act. You sure you don't want another minute? He asked me gently. His eyes were full of remorse. No, Austin will still be gone, and if we don't help, then we might lose someone else. I won't lose anyone else I love, I demanded, more of myself than him. The tears burned at the edge of my eyes, but I blinked them away and refused to let them fall. I accepted the oversized shirt Maddox pulled from the bag he'd hastily packed before we left our house and pulled it on as I walked back into the house. Our shoes were discarded long ago, having no point with our shifting back and forth. Take the kids, my grandmother insisted. I need to stay here. I'm too old, too injured. Once I've healed a bit, I'll be right behind you. I looked at Maddox, not knowing what to do. She was an adult who could make her own decisions, but she was also my grandma, who I refused to lose. Liam would be distraught to lose his mother so soon after his father. Do you promise you'll come up after you've healed? Maddox asked from my side. There's a safe room in Robert's office. They'll never even know I'm here, she replied, looking relieved we weren't forcing her to go. Maddox helped her shuffle into the safe room, sitting her on the couch within it. I covered her with more blankets and gave her water from the fridge in the room. She seemed content, and the kids said their goodbyes before filing out guided by Maddox. I stayed behind to talk to her. You're my grandma, I started, not sure where I was going, but I didn't want to leave anything unsaid in case I didn't see her again. I know I'm adopted, but that doesn't matter to me, Missy. You're mine, the same as Liam. The same as Isley. I breathed a sigh of relief. I don't know why, but hearing her say it aloud made me feel better. Then don't let us lose you too. Grandpa is gone, but we all need you. She grabbed my hand and squeezed it in hers. It hit me how fragile she felt now. I hugged her tightly, praying it wasn't the last time. I can only promise you that I will do my best, but I won't give up. I'll heal here and make it to the pack house if it's the last thing I do. Don't make it the last thing, I scolded before pulling away. She smiled at me in return. I love you, Grandma. I love you, too, she replied quietly, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. When you leave, the air filters will kick in, and it should kill my scent leading into the room. I'll be safe here. Your grandfather was very prepared. I'll find you later then, I promised, leaving the room and making sure the door closed behind me. It was amazing that the wall sealed itself with no visible marks, leaving no indication there was a room there. I grabbed Isley from Junior, and we all left the house together. Leo and Lucas held Maddox's hands while Junior and Delilah held each other. We moved as fast as we could with small children, and surprisingly, we didn't come upon any vampires. We stayed in the trees to keep as much cover as possible until we got to the pack house. As we got to the edge of the trees and walked past the prison, Maddox hesitated. What? We need to keep moving, I told him. Vlad, he replied plainly. My eyebrows furrowed. They could come for him to tie up loose ends. He gave us intel on the vampires, even if it was only a little. If we let him die in his prison cell, you'll never forgive yourself. I don't. I couldn't honestly say I didn't care, but I was still furious with him. He'd helped cause all of this. Why did my mate care? We're going, he said, walking in that direction and not giving me any choice. "The kids!" I hissed. "We can't take them to a prison. We'll be in and out. It can't be any more dangerous than what we're doing now." I looked down at Delilah and Liam, who were hesitating while Maddox pulled Leo and Lucas with him. I nodded to them, and we rushed to catch up to Maddox. I pulled Aelia tight to me, and Delilah and Lucas came closer as we walked. Aelia was cooing and babbling into my chest, and I tried to keep her as quiet as possible. We worked our way down the floors to where Vlad was. My heart was beating quickly as we hurried down the hall. The last time I was here, I slapped him in the face. He didn't deserve our pity, but he meant something to me at one time. It was hard to let that go. Vlad looked up, his face splitting into a smile as he saw me and then quickly becoming expressionless as Maddox and the other kids came into view. "What's going on?" he asked in confusion. "Vampires are attacking, and we're bringing you with us. I'm not going to let you die here if they come looking for you," Maddox told him, shuffling through the keys to find the right one. "We assumed the guards ran to the pack house to help because no one else was here. I don't deserve your mercy," Vlad mumbled, averting his eyes from us. "I don't have time for this," I said coldly. "Get out of the cell, now." He had no further argument and walked out to follow us. We were back out of the prison doors quickly, but Maddox stopped suddenly. His eyes were far off for a second, and fear flooded my stomach. "Missy, your dad is hurt, and Damian is fighting the sire that hurt him. I've fought a sire and won. I should go help. Take the kids, get inside the pack house," he started to direct me. "No!" I shouted, cutting him off before lowering my voice to an angry whisper. "I have to go too. He is my dad." I looked toward the pack house, knowing that a vampire could easily intercept my siblings before they got there. "There's no one else to take them. They can't go by themselves," Maddox reasoned. I looked down at little Aelia and then at the boys and Delilah. They weren't safe out here in the open, they couldn't fight like Maddox and I could. But I didn't want to split up. The longer we stood here debating this, the more trouble Damian and Liam could be in. "I'll take them," Vlad said boldly. "I will protect them, and the pack house isn't far. Let me do this." I didn't know what to say. I turned to Maddox, trying to gauge his reaction. Vlad had no wolf but he could move them along quickly. Maddox seemed to be thinking about something before he dropped to one knee to talk to Junior. "Little L, you're in charge here. Can you get your brother and sister back to the pack house? Vlad is going to come with you to make sure you're safe." Junior looked at Vlad distrustingly, but he nodded. "Go help my dad. He needs you." Maddox stood up and gave Vlad a piercing look. "If you do anything stupid, I'll kill you myself." "That's fair. But I won't let the kids get hurt. I never wanted them to get hurt." "You can trust me," Vlad told him, although the last part felt pointed in my direction. Maddox pulled Aelia from my arms, although she didn't seem to want to leave. Vlad took her gently, pulling her close to him and patting her until she calmed. "Go now and do not stop. Someone needs to link me when they are in the safe room," Maddox growled. He wasn't happy about this, but we both knew there weren't many good options. "Keep them safe, or it won't be Maddox you have to worry about," I gave my own warning. I was putting my entire family in Vlad's hands, and I prayed I wasn't making a mistake. "I promise," he told me, smiling. It was the same smile that used to brighten my day, but right now, I wanted to slap it from his face. He turned, leading the children away. We sprinted toward the training field where Damian and my dad were supposed to be. As the field came into view, I saw Lee dropping to her knees next to a body. The stench of vampire was overwhelming as we got closer. There was no way my dad was dead, I wouldn't let it happen. Junior. I don't like Vlad. I can protect Aelia and Leo, Delilah, and Lucas, too. I am the future alpha. We stopped the vampires from hurting Grandma. This boy was in prison because he hurt Sissy before, and she shouldn't let him be saved now. You're a bad guy. Why are you helping us? I asked him while we walked fast. My legs were starting to hurt, but I wasn't going to tell him that. I'm not as bad of a guy as you think I am, he told me. He looked sad. They killed my mom and took my wolf. I thought it was over when I came to your pack, but then I fell in love with your sister, and Warwick told me he'd kill her if I didn't do what they said. I couldn't let anyone hurt her, just like I won't let anyone hurt you. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. We were close enough to the pack house to see warriors near the back doors. The warriors were yelling, and people ran to the pack house from all over to get to safety. A loud growl sounded behind us. Vlad turned, and I looked over my shoulder to see a girl vampire coming toward us. She had blood on her mouth, and her teeth looked sharp. Vlad came to a stop, and I turned around to yell at him. He shoved Aelia into my hands and said, "Run. Call for the warriors. You can make it. I'll keep the vampire away. Just run with us." I squeezed my baby sister tightly as he stood and turned around. I didn't understand what he was doing. "Just go," he shouted. "Tell Missy I did it for her. Tell her I loved her." The girl vampire smiled evilly at us, and Vlad raised his arms to shield us. My eyes went wide as she started to come toward us. I turned, shouting, "Run!" Delilah grabbed onto Lucas and Leo and pulled them with us as we sprinted to the pack house. Jacob came rushing at us. "You have to help him!" I yelled to the warriors. "He saved us!" I looked over my shoulder and felt cold. The girl vampire was standing over Vlad, and he wasn't moving. A wolf came out of nowhere, tackling her away. "He's gone, Junior," Jacob told me as he picked Aelia and me up. I struggled against him, trying to get down. Shouldn't he be helping Vlad too? He just saved us. "Let me get you inside." I didn't understand why they wouldn't help him. He couldn't be dead, Missy was going to be sad now. Jacob took us inside, where all the other pack members were getting into the safe room. Mr. Felix and Miss Marcy were huddled over Miss Lacey, and Miss Abigail was crying. "Stay here, all of you," Jacob said as he moved us over to the side. "We will come back to find you when it's safe, but you need to stay put." Chapter 70. Damian. Liam slumped to the ground, and Nethercoat held up a syringe, taunting him. "Dirty vampires," I thought. It felt empty that I didn't have Cage mirroring my anger, which infuriated me more. Liam wasn't getting up. He'd dropped to his knees, and I could tell from his expression this was much worse than the fight with Cole. That had only been a dagger dipped in wolfsbane, this was an entire vial. "Maddox, Liam is hurt. We are on the training grounds with another sire. In case I don't walk away from this, I need you to come get Liam. Get Missy to the pack house with Aelia and Felix, then get here to bring Liam to safety. Do not tell Missy. I needed a contingency plan. Felix would be getting Aelia to safety and have his hands full keeping her there." Jacob and Sean were coordinating warriors and pack members, and Austin went to help Lissa. Maddox was my best chance for the moment. "I'll be there as fast as I can," came Maddox's reply. "I'm going to let this knee heal, so I think you can go ahead and finish him off," Nethercoat instructed the vampires around him, who once again closed ranks to protect him. "I don't think so," I growled, rushing in like a bull to body check the first vampire to reach Liam. He was launched off his feet into the group behind him, dropping them like bowling pins. I wielded my axes in each hand, and the vampires' screams filled the training ground as the leeches felt the bite of my blades. I punched out, catching one of them in the nose and flattening it to their face. I used the curve beneath my axe to hook it behind their head and pull them into me for a headbutt. It crushed their skull inwards, and I dropped them like a lifeless sack of bones to the ground. I felt hands on my shoulders as they started to close around me. A swipe of my hand sent the arm of a vampire through the air as I cut it away from its owner. He screeched, but he kept fighting. One rushed me, and I kicked him hard enough in the chest to send him sailing over the heads of his friends to crumple on the ground behind them. They were starting to look more hesitant to attack me, and I was thinning them one by one. "I think I'll take my leave now," Nethercoat said nervously behind his group of vampires. "Finish up and come find me when you're done." He turned to walk away into the treeline, but I refused to let him get away. I remembered what Michael had done earlier when he was first handling my new weapons. Stepping back away from the vampires in front of me, I pulled the axe in my hand behind my ear and launched it as hard as I could. It whistled through the air before it buried itself into Nethercoat's back, driving him forward into a tree and pinning him to it. "Wait there for me," I growled. "I won't be long." I looked back at my best friend still hunched over on the ground. "Are you okay down there, Liam?" I asked, praying he wasn't dead. I knew it was a lot of wolfsbane, but he was an alpha, he was Liam. His answer came in the form of labored breaths and stifled grunts. He wasn't saying anything, but at least for now, he was alive. All I could do was kill everyone in front of me and hope I got him back to Aelia in time. I knew what healing did to her, so I hoped this wasn't enough to kill her either. All that stood in front of me and getting Liam to safety were these vampires and their sire. I could solve that. I ran towards the remaining group in front of me and started breaking and hacking at everything I could reach. They swarmed me as I attacked them, but it just put more of them close enough to touch. I buried my blade in the forehead of one of the vampires in front of me, and when I pulled it back, her head wouldn't come free. So, I picked her body up over my head and brought it down like a hammer onto another one of her kin. I swung her side to side, leveling vampires as she went until she finally broke free and disappeared among the other bodies piling at my feet. I only had one axe now, but that meant I had another hand to grab them and hold them in place while I went to work with my blade. As they attempted to defend themselves, I chopped off anything that came near me. The ground was littered with hands, arms, legs, and heads among the bodies that blanketed it. I could hear Nethercoat struggling against the axe holding him to the tree and trying to draw in breath. It just resulted in a wet gurgling as he slumped, unable to pull himself free. I finally held the last vampire in my hand as they begged me for their life. "Please," he reasoned. "Don't kill me. They made me come here. You'll have to sort that out with whatever you pray to," I told him. I brought the axe high over my head and chopped down as hard as I could. The blade parted the vampire's body like melted butter, and I was soon watching the two halves fall away from each other as everything within him spilled onto the ground in a mess of shredded organs and blood. "It's finally your turn," I told Nethercoat. He was going to pay for what he'd done. They all were. I stalked over to the sire, where he feebly pushed against the tree, trying to escape as he heard me approaching. "Did you really think we'd let you get away with this?" I asked, not really expecting an answer. Do vampires really think we'll let you come here to our homes, and we'll roll over so you can slaughter us? If he was trying to respond, it was lost in his inability to draw breath. I'd finally reached him. I took the axe in my hand and slammed it into Nethercoat next to its twin. I felt it rip through him to sink into the tree. A horrible sound of pain and terror escaped Nethercoat. He clawed at the tree now, ripping huge chunks out of it. The sire looked desperate, but he wouldn't be much longer. You thought you could take everything from me, I roared as I grabbed under his chin with the other hand on the back of his head. Now, you'll watch as I take everything from you. With a sickening pop, I turned his head all the way around to face me. His eyes were wide as he saw me and looked down at his back. Nethercoat's head was backward now, the skin ripped in around his neck. He was mouthing words like he wanted to talk to me, but nothing was coming out. There was no throat connected to it anymore. I grabbed one of his arms at the wrist and the shoulder. With effort, I ripped it off his body and threw it on the ground. You took my wolf from me. I took hold of his other arm as tears of blood began to stream down his face. I tore it from his body, too, holding it up to show him. You tried to kill my friends. I reached down to grab his ankle next, pulling it awkwardly out from his body. His eyes looked even more panicked. I twisted hard, wrenching his leg away from him and out of its socket. You came to my pack. You put my kids in danger. Nethercoat's final limb was in my hands. I was done with the missions and the intelligence gathering. They came here, and I was resolved to make an example. I would kill them all myself if I had to. Now, you try to kill my alpha. My best friend. You're not leaving here alive. Very little blood escaped as his leg came free. He'd bled so much now that it was a crimson pool at my feet, soaking my shoes. I was covered from head to toe. His body was trembling, and I had no use for this anymore. I needed to get Liam to help. I seized his hair and pulled his face up to look into mine. I hope it was worth it, I growled as I tore his head from his body completely. Pulling my axes from his body with one hand, his dismembered trunk fell to the ground and splashed in the dark puddle. I placed Nethercoat's head on his back so that it could serve as a warning to any other vampires coming this way. They should know it will only end in death. I walked towards Liam and saw someone running toward us with a person over their shoulder. They reached Liam first, and I could tell it was our Luna. She threw herself to her knees, pulling Liam's head into her lap as she fussed over him. I could hear his groans from here, and I couldn't tell if he would make it much longer. Once I reached them, I heard Aelia say, "I'm here, Liam, just hold on." I breathed a small sigh of relief. If anyone could keep him alive, it would be her. Aelia. The sun was setting, and the pain within me had already subsided. I wasn't sure why, but I felt stronger. Seeing Liam in pain was awful, but I knew I could heal him. This feels like when Cole stabbed him with wolfsbane, but it was worse. Did that happen again? I asked Damian, fussing over Liam. Yeah, he replied gruffly. Nethercoat stuck him with a syringe. He's collapsed almost immediately. A sire appeared with a big group, and when Liam asked to fight him one-on-one, the vampire agreed but stuck him with the wolfsbane. A sire? I asked, looking around frantically. If another sire was here with Warwick, we could be in massive trouble. I killed all of the vampires and then the sire, Lee. We're safe, at least for now. Relief blossomed within my chest as I put both of my hands on Liam. It was time to heal him. I never figured out how to use my power without touching someone since that first time during Cole and Liam's fight. Liam was grunting below me. I can do this, I whispered to myself. Aelia, Liam said softly, pulling my hand into him. Don't. It could kill you. You have to let me do this, Liam, I insisted. He wasn't going to stop me from this, he was in pain, and I could help. You can't, he tried to argue. I brought my lips over his to stop him from talking, pushing the energy from my body into his as I tasted his lips. I closed my eyes, and I pictured me aura washing through his body, blanketing it in healing energy. Unlike what usually happened, I felt no pain or fatigue. As I pulled away, Liam's eyes were clear and looked worried. Are you okay? He asked, looking me up and down as he rolled himself over. No pain, I promised him. I don't know why, but this time was different. He looked up towards the now darkened sky where the moon was starting to show. Do you think? He'd told me about the harvest moon legend, and I knew that's what he was referring to. I don't know. I am the right age. He pulled me to him tightly, crushing my lips with his. I accepted him gladly, my anxiety over him surviving finally abated. I healed him so easily it was almost miraculous. Damian cleared his throat, breaking the moment to remind us we were in the middle of a battlefield. Sorry, Damian, I apologized, my cheeks flushed. Liam stood gracefully and reached out his hand to help me up too. As we stood, Missy came out of nowhere, launching herself at Liam like a missile. You're okay, she shouted, her voice muffled by his chest. I'm fine, Liam consoled her. He hugged her tightly and patted her hair tenderly. Aelia got here just in time. His eyes met mine lovingly. Missy released Liam and looked at me with concern. Are you sure? You aren't tired? She asked. No, I shook my head. I'm okay and now so is your dad. Sorry, Beta. I can't really keep anything from her, Maddox apologized sheepishly. Damian narrowed his eyes but clapped him on the shoulder. All that matters is you're here. Thank you for coming, even though I didn't need you. I looked up at my mate and braced myself for the fight I knew was coming. Liam, we need to use the watch to end Warwick. Here's here, he has to be. I don't need the watch. I'm going to tear him apart for what he's done here, Liam told me. His eyes grew dark. Gavin had to be pushing at the seams to get out. Let me go with you. I can heal you if they try the same thing again or you get hurt, I demanded. I couldn't let him leave me behind like he always did, this was my pack too and I could be of use. We need to finish this together. Alpha and Luna. Liam looked torn. I could feel the indecision through our bond along with his worry for my safety. I felt the same about him leaving me to go off and fight somewhere, so I wasn't letting him lock me in the pack house to go alone. Fine, he agreed. You can't make. Fine. I'd started to argue before I caught what he said. You'll let me help? Yes, he sighed, turning to Azran. At the first sign that she's tired or in danger, you take her back to the pack house or somewhere else safe. Don't break my trust again. I let you live once, I won't if she gets hurt. Understood, Alpha, Azran said simply, moving closer to me. I'll go with them if Lee is in danger, Missy told Liam, her voice thick with determination. This wasn't the same girl who had been kidnapped only a couple of months ago. She stood in front of us, next to her warrior mate, covered in blood and dirt but without an ounce of fear on her face. Missy, I want you away from all this. This isn't your fight, Liam told her. She shook her head. This is my pack. I am the Alpha's daughter. This is just as much my fight as anyone else's. I won't let them take anyone else I care about, she said, her voice not wavering a bit. All right, Liam acknowledged. Stay with Maddox. I know you are strong, but he will keep you safe. Liam felt just as much pride for our daughter as I did. I wanted her safe but understood what this meant. We have to find Warwick now, Damian input. I can't tell if these attacks are random or planned. When we got to Lissa's, the last vampire said he was there to kidnap the kids. But they had already been attacked before that group got there. If you add that to Big Rave's mate coming after me, I think that it's mostly random with vampires doing what they want. Then, small units were sent to do specific tasks in the resulting confusion, Maddox interjected. His calculating expression was serious as he considered everything they'd seen thus far. Did Austin get the children to the pack house? Is my mom okay? Liam asked. Missy and Maddox exchanged a somber look, and Maddox shook his head. Austin is gone. We got there too late, and he died in front of us. Lissa is in the safe room in her house because she was too injured to move. The kids should be at the pack house by now. I couldn't believe what Maddox was saying. My chest felt tight, war was really upon us. Austin was one of the first wolves in the pack to accept me, and since then I'd grown to love him and his mate. Abigail was probably in shambles right now, and Austin would never come to comfort her. We have to find Warwick and kill him, I snapped. If we don't, he's going to slaughter the whole pack. I tried reasoning with him, but he's beyond that. You won't have to look far, Warwick's voice came from the trees. Liam and Damian blocked my view, but it didn't matter. We didn't have to find our enemy because he came right to us. Chapter 71. Aelia, this feels like a trap, Maddox pointed out as we all looked toward the trees. It is, Liam agreed, nodding. But, he's on our pack land, and I have some of our strongest warriors here. He probably expected Nethercoat to capture me and kill Damian. He won't be expecting us like this, and we should use it to our advantage. I hoped Liam was right. Warwick seemed to be one step ahead of us no matter what we did. I pushed around Liam to see no one emerging from the trees. The sun finished setting, and its pink and orange hues had given way to darkness. Warwick wasn't coming to us, he was baiting us to come to him. He wants us to come find him, I grumbled in annoyance. I didn't want to trudge through the woods to find him. It probably meant he had something planned for us that we wouldn't like. We have to try, Damian said, rolling his shoulders like he was preparing himself. We're going to have to go after him, and I'm sure there are still plenty of vampires out there, Liam reasoned. I don't want to split up, but we're going to have to. Come and play, my puppies, Warwick laughed menacingly from within the trees. It occurred to me that Warwick was speaking in all of our heads. What should we do? I asked Liam. I had the watch, but I wasn't expecting a game of cat and mouse. I worried that we were the mice. There is a lot of area to search. I want you to stay close to me. So, you and Azran are with me. Damian, Missy, and Maddox will go together separately, and we can head in different directions. We can't afford to pull more wolves from the pack house, this could be a distraction meant for us to be lured away. I will not compromise the kids' or other pack members' safety by using our warriors to search, Liam replied, his concern palpable. I chewed the inside of my cheek nervously as everyone nodded their understanding. Damian, have you checked on Lily? If they have taken care of all the vampires around them, they could search as well. Damian closed his eyes, and when he opened them, he updated us. Lily was with Quinn at the park near the pond. Michael got there, and they were fighting a large group of vampires who all crumbled suddenly. I bet they were all Nethercott's little bastards. They're going to search the park thoroughly and then head this way if they don't find anything. Good, Liam noted, squeezing my hand. He looked down at me, his blue eyes shining with steeled determination. Let's go. We moved toward the trees closest to us. Liam looked like he was stalking his enemies. His shoulders were wide and slightly forward while his broad chest was puffed out. His gait was aggressive, and his footsteps were heavy. I swallowed nervously, squeezing his hand tightly. Azrin stayed barely a step behind us. We stopped in front of the treeline, and Liam shouted, "Come out, Warwick! Come and find me," he taunted, his voice not giving us a direction to go in. "Be careful," Damian said in a low voice. I could feel the warning in his tone. "We will," I told him, feigning confidence as I touched my hand lightly to his shoulder. I felt my healing power almost pulling at me to be let out, so I allowed it. Damian's minor injuries from his battle with Nethercoat and his kin healed before my eyes. Surprisingly, I felt no fatigue as I pulled my hand away from him with my surprised look mirroring his. "Wow," Damian exclaimed, looking his body up and down. "You need to learn how to do this all the time. It's great." "Maddox and Missy, come here," I asked on a whim. I laid my hands on my daughter and her mate. I felt my power push into them and wash away cuts and bruises from their encounters. Liam watched with a mixture of pride and worry. Missy smiled, "Thanks, Mom." "Of course, sweetheart," I replied, kissing her gently on the forehead. I stepped back, and Liam grabbed my hand once again. With a reassuring squeeze, he looked ready to move. I tried to remain calm, but we were met with no resistance as we moved further into the woods. I expected Warwick to appear at any time, making me anxious as we found nothing. We were all out here now, so what game was he playing? My stomach was still in knots thinking about him trying to get to the kids. I trusted our warriors to keep the pack house safe, but Warwick was a sire. I worried it might not be enough. I clutched Liam's hand tighter, praying we didn't get separated. Maddox. We searched in silence for 15 minutes, heading further and further away from Alpha, Luna, and Azrin. Warwick's voice stopped us all. "Now that Nethercoat and his kin are gone, it's time for mine to come out to play." With an orange-hued shimmer in the air all around us, vampires appeared from nowhere. My witch was kind enough to lend me a hand with a few spells, like this one. My kin were able to stay out of your view, but that isn't even the best part. Vampires surrounded us as Warwick was gleefully telling us there was more. This couldn't be good. I heard heavy footsteps from something massive coming through the trees. The sound grew louder and louder until a massive vampire appeared. He was easily 7 feet tall and built like a gorilla they'd shaved and trained to fight us. "I thought I would introduce you to my special pet. He's been fed nothing but witch's blood day and night for as long as I can remember. It has enhanced his abilities. This should keep you sufficiently busy as I deal with your alpha. My other soldiers won't need to interfere. They'll stand sentinel as you attempt to keep your lives." "Here we go," Damian muttered calmly under his breath. "Alpha, are you hearing this?" I linked Liam. "Yes, I did," Liam responded. "Can you handle this? We can come find you." "No, we will take care of it. Stop Warwick and don't worry about us," I told him. I looked over at Damian. He was ready. He gripped his axes so hard his knuckles were white. His size combined with his fury made him appear like a bull ready to demolish a china shop. Then I remembered my mate. "You might want to let me and Damian handle this one," I cautioned Missy quietly. This could be difficult for Damian and I to handle. The vampire in front of us was no joke. Okay, she replied calmly. If you think it would be better, then I will stand back. I realized she was scared, and her fear was feeding my own through our bond. She stepped behind Damian and I as her fear was replaced with relief and unease. The behemoth in front of us looked at Damian and me as we stepped forward together, and that's when I noticed. The monster in front of us was smiling, and his eyes were glowing orange. That's not good, I told Damian. I don't care what he is. Let's just put him down, he responded, his voice thick with bloodlust. Let's go, I agreed. The two of us stalked to our adversary, carefully searching for the best way to approach our attack. He didn't give us that choice. Breaking into a lumbering sprint, he hurtled toward us. A huge hand swiped in front of my face as he lashed out, but I managed to duck away from it at the last moment. Not only was he enormous, but this vampire was also fast. He wasn't as fast as us, but the gap in our speed wasn't as large as I thought it would be. He punched out at Damian, who couldn't move in time. A large fist crashed into Damian's chest, throwing him back onto his A*S. Damian hit the ground, and I heard all of his breath exhale sharply from his lungs as he coughed blood. I tried to give him a small window of recovery, so I lunged at our opponent. I threw a hard overhand right, but he didn't even move. He smiled and watched my fist connect with his jaw. It felt like I'd punched concrete, except it didn't break. Oh no, I thought. Should I tell Missy to run? Let me out, Tom demanded. I wasn't sure that was a good idea. If the other vampires were training for fighting wolves, I could only imagine this one had as well. He was a different breed than anything we had seen yet. If he closed his arms around me, I wasn't going to survive it. When it's time, I assured him, trying desperately to keep him from taking over. Now is the time, he demanded. We have to keep our mate safe. I growled, pushing him back deeper into my mind. The vampire was watching us now with an amused look on his face. Damian, you good? I asked. A cough from behind me and the sounds of getting off the ground followed. I will be when this is dead. I hit him pretty hard, and he's still smiling. It didn't faze him, I warned him, still unsure of how to approach this. He won't brush off my axes. Damian stepped forward to stand beside me again and then started throwing a succession of attacks with his axes at the vampire. The leech dodged most of his attacks, but Damian finally caught him with a chop down into his clavicle. Blood spurted, and the vampire looked down at his wound with curiosity. He narrowed his eyes at both of us like he'd now decided this wasn't fun anymore, and he was going to actually take the fight seriously. I didn't like that look. He started throwing a heavy barrage of punches at Damian, and the vampire tried to bite him anytime he got close enough. It rocked Damian back on his heels, and he didn't have time to fight back. He was in survival mode. If I didn't do something soon, Damian would be overwhelmed. I think we have to take the chance, I told Tom. I was confident in my fighting ability, but I was pretty sure I needed my wolf's teeth to cut into the vampire's flesh to end this. Finally, Tom growled, bursting to the surface. I attacked the vampire's legs, breaking his flow of attacks on Damian and giving him room to breathe. This started us working together in unison, and we alternated attacking between the vampire's upper body and lower body, axes, and wolf. The vampire looked like he was getting frustrated, but he was calm and calculating. Damian had succeeded in making a few superficial cuts, and I'd bitten the vampire a few times. It hadn't fazed him, though, and he kept fighting as if we caused him no pain. I couldn't tell if he was incredibly tough or if he literally couldn't feel our attacks. I saw an opening and lunged for his legs as Damian was coming in to strike, but as my teeth were about to find purchase on his leg, he shifted his stance and grabbed me by the scruff. Holding me up like a shield, the vampire put me in between himself and Damian. I saw it happen in slow motion, including the look of horror on Damian's face as he realized what he was about to do. I watched the axe arc past his ear, move forward, and bite into my flesh. By the time I felt it, I was on the ground, and one of my front legs was beside me. I could hear Missy screaming in the background, but I couldn't decipher what she was saying. I felt warm, and my vision started to darken. The last thing I saw was the vampire holding Damian by the throat in the air. Liam. We heard what Warwick told the others, and it was taking everything I had not to go to them. Still, I knew that if I ended him, it would stop the threat to them entirely. We had to keep going. As we traveled deeper in the woods, it became quieter, more still. It was as if the animals of the forest knew what was happening and left. I pressed my senses to their limit, trying to smell, see, or hear any possible clue to Warwick's plan. Gavin was pacing and on edge, waiting to be set free. He at least understood why he couldn't be out yet, but he didn't like it. We broke into a clearing, and it felt like I walked into a brick wall. My grip on Aelia faltered. I looked, and there was nothing around. I reached out my hand, and an orange haze met wherever I touched. When I looked down, I realized why. There was an intricate magic rune activated beneath me. I turned back to Aelia, but she wasn't in the magical prison with me. It was keeping her out the same way it was keeping me in. Azrin's head was on a swivel, looking everywhere, trying to find the threat. Finally, Warwick said, coming into view from the other side of the clearing. I think now we can get started. Get behind me, Luna, Azrin growled. Very noble, Mutt, but it's hopeless. It won't save you or her, Warwick taunted. I'm going to kill you, I promised him, bringing my fist down on the wall separating us. You'll try, he laughed. But first, you're going to watch me kill this mate that you're so attached to. Chapter 72. Aelia. Liam was trapped, so I had to end this now. I looked down at the watch, still wondering if it was going to work. It had a time limit, and I didn't know how close I would have to be to make it work. Warwick's intent was clear, so he would get closer to me soon. Azrin was on edge, trembling as he stared at Warwick with intent to kill. I didn't think he was scared, it looked like he was struggling to contain his wolf. I had to kill Warwick to protect Liam, to protect everyone. I prayed to the moon goddess that Liam was only trapped, and this wasn't some magical way to kill him. The only thing I could think to do was kill Warwick or the witch he had cast the spell. I lamented how I'd deceived Felix's witch friend and destroyed that potential partnership. Warwick had a witch, so we should have seen this coming. He would use whatever he could to knock us down and destroy our lives. Warwick started walking towards us, slowly clapping as he did. You've finally made it. I have to commend you, Aelia. No matter what happens, you cannot stop yourself from rushing into danger to save the ones you love. You even convinced him to bring you right to me this time. Warwick motioned to Liam, who roared, still trying to escape through brute force. Nothing he did was working. My heart plummeted watching Liam struggle as Warwick slowly neared. I could feel his terror and frustration with being trapped and unable to protect me. It was only making it harder to stand confidently now. As much as I trusted Azrin, I didn't think he would be able to protect me from Warwick by himself. Azrin, I said softly, placing my hand gently on his back. You don't need to risk your life like this. Warwick wants me. Get out of here and find a way to help Liam. I'm not leaving, Azran growled. Thank you for trying to let me go, Luna, but I won't leave you this time. Not again. I knew that he felt guilty about Robert, but dying wasn't going to solve that. Azran, I'm ordering you as your Luna to go. Azran! Liam yelled, clearly about to argue with my order. With all due respect, Luna, you can put me in prison if we make it through this, but I'm not going anywhere, Azran said, steeling himself. Shame blossomed in my chest. I didn't want him to die senselessly protecting me. He had time to get away. Now that we have settled that, Warwick interjected, bringing us back to reality. I would like to remind you that you're all about to die. Having your side conversations is not helping your cause here. Liam roared. I swear to the moon goddess your goddess holds no power here, Warwick warned him with a condescending smile. He looked up and opened his arms to broadly gesture to one of the brightest moons I had ever seen in my life. I hadn't noticed it with everything going on. She bathes you in her light, yet you are still trapped, Alpha. Your Luna is moments from being in my hands once more. Do you still believe in Goddess? She will not save you. No one will. You'll watch as I slowly kill this sweet flower you try so hard to protect but can never seem to. My family will dispose of the rest of your little pack and those puppies too. Then and only then will I give you the death you deserve. I'm still here, Azran reminded him while baring his teeth. That is of no consequence, Mutt, Warwick replied with disdain. Pretending you matter only prolongs me taking your Luna by mere seconds. Your Alpha and Beta together didn't kill me. You think you can alone? Don't underestimate me, Azran retorted. You overestimate yourself, Warwick chided. Come, show me what you're capable of. Luna, run, Azran demanded. No. I shouted after him. He ignored my words and shifted, charging at Warwick. Liam began to panic, and he turned to beg me to go. Aelia, please listen. Find Damian. Get out of here. He just wants to kill you, and I can't. I can't break this circle. The desperation in his voice tore me to shreds, but I had to stay. I knew that Greyback left me this watch for a reason, and it had to be the key to beating Warwick. If it wasn't, we were all doomed anyway. My heart thundered in my chest as I turned my gaze back to Azran. Liam continued to beat at the magical barrier dividing us. Azran made it to Warwick, but the fight was short-lived. Warwick punched Azran in the forehead hard enough that I could hear the cracking of his skull. He drove Azran's head into the ground and then stomped on him viciously until he stopped moving. I could see Azran's fur matted with blood, and tears stung my eyes with the fear that he was dead. His body slowly shifted back to human form, but he remained unmoving on the ground. I prayed he was only unconscious. I watched Warwick bring his foot up for a final blow to crush Azran's now human head, and I felt the scream tearing out of my throat before I heard it. Stop! Warwick turned to me and broke into a sickening grin. Are you ready for me now? Yes, I managed to get out. Take me and leave him alone. As you wish, he teased, lowering his foot and walking away from Azran towards me. Liam must have lost the ability to hold back Gavin because as Warwick closed the distance between us, he shifted. His roars, howls, and the sound of him beating himself against the barrier between us were heart-wrenching. I couldn't hold back the tears as I watched my mate try so hopelessly to get to me. My eyes darted back and forth between Warwick approaching and Liam trapped. Liam wouldn't stop until he got to me. I could see Liam bleeding from his self-inflicted injuries. Oh, calm yourself, Liam, Warwick scolded as if talking to a child as he came to a stop in front of me. I tried to hold myself up straight and not let my fear show. It will be over soon. He softly caressed my hair, looking down with pity. You're lucky I find wolves reprehensible, or I'd make you watch as we made a new litter here in front of you. I do have to admit, even though she's a mutt, she is rather attractive. I seem to remember she doesn't have a wolf, so she is technically human, right? Maybe. As his fingertip traced the lines of my face, my skin crawled. I could handle dying. I wasn't prepared for Warwick to be so base. I opened my mouth to speak the watch's inscription, but I was met with a hard backhand that threw me to the ground. I tried to push myself up as I spit blood from my mouth. My head was fuzzy from the impact, and my jaw ached. I closed my eyes and shook my head to get my bearings again. If I wanted you to open your mouth, I would tell you. The men are talking now, Luna, Warwick chastised me. This was going to be even harder than I expected. Lily. Michael and Quinn were a force of nature. They ripped through the never-ending flood of vampires. I was able to stop any that got past them, but just barely. I collapsed on the ground next to Quinn as she shifted back. Moments ago, the vampires all stopped and crumbled away before us. Quinn and Michael were smiling excitedly at each other as we caught our breaths. Suddenly, I remembered the kids, and panic overtook me. I stood to my feet quickly when Damian's voice broke through my thoughts. Lily, are you okay? Oh my goddess, I'm so glad to hear your voice, Di. Relief poured through me, and the pressure in my chest eased just a little. I'm with Liam, Aelia, Maddox, and Missy. Missy and Maddox said Delilah and Lucas are with Liam's kids at the pack house right now. They got them from Lissa's. I let out a heavy breath. My kids were safe, and so was my mate. I fell back to the ground, letting the exhaustion consume me for a minute now that my adrenaline was waning. Are you okay? Quinn asked, her face concerned. More than okay, I laughed. Damian and my kids are all safe for the moment. Listen, are you still with Michael and Quinn? Yes, why? Do you need me? Tell me what to do, I replied, ready to fight again. I stopped a sire who came with Warwick, but Warwick is still out there. He is taunting us. Pride swelled in my chest, knowing Damian was why all the vampires here were gone. I couldn't believe he killed a sire. All the vampires here just crumbled away not long ago. They had to be his kin. Wait, is Liam all right? If you killed a sire by yourself. Don't worry, he stopped me. He is fine, and I can explain it all later. Right now, we need your help searching for Warwick. We are headed to the woods from the training ground. I don't want to move any warriors from the pack house, so I need your help. Try to get Michael and Quinn to help you, we will owe them a debt. Start in the park and work your way toward us. I can handle this, Damian. Find Warwick and help Liam stop him. If I find anything, I will tell you immediately. Be careful, Di. I'll try Lillipad. I love you. And I love you. The whole conversation only took a minute or so, but I wished I could have had more time. I had an awful feeling that it felt like goodbye, and I couldn't handle the thought of never seeing him again. I had to help end this. I wouldn't go through that again. What's going on? Michael asked. I quickly explained what was happening, and they were immediately ready for action again. Of course, we'll help you, Quinn insisted, dismissing my apologies for dragging them into this. We agreed to help you in this war, whether it be surprise attack or planned, Michael inserted. I won't let our allies die when we could have helped stop it. We are just grateful to be here as this happened. We are grateful, too. I don't think we could ever repay you. We quickly decided to fan out and thoroughly search the park. Michael pointed out that the park provided a great hiding spot with its position. Just because the other sire's army was gone didn't mean all the vampires were. We split up, Quinn and I moving around one side of the pond with Michael going the other direction. We took our time, trying to decipher the lingering vampire stench for any new sense. When we reached the other side and Michael caught up to us again, Quinn caught onto something. She led us into a tree grouping, where we found a frail-looking woman huddled against a tree. Her pale skin was sunken and hollow on her frame, and she looked terrified. She didn't smell like a vampire or wolf at all. "She's a witch," Quinn said softly, looking as concerned as I felt about her. Neither Michael or Quinn looked defensive at all despite the witch in front of us. "I am," she confirmed, smiling weakly. "You're here to help Warwick then?" I asked, wanting to hear the confirmation. "Yes," she answered weakly. "Not by my own will, though. He's been keeping me as livestock to feed some vampire monster he's created, and he uses me for my magic. I haven't been strong enough to leave since he took me. Magic is emanating from her. It's flowing to spells or magical items that are tethered to her," Quinn told us. "How do you?" I wasn't sure what I was asking. How could she know that? "We'll have to explain later, but Quinn can sense magic. You can trust her," Michael explained. I didn't have time to question any of it. We needed to stop anything Warwick was doing. Quinn bent down in front of the woman. "Is there any way I can talk you into stopping?" "I don't want to hurt you," Quinn asked gently. Her voice was firm but also held compassion. I could tell she was a strong Luna that wasn't afraid to handle an enemy if she had to. "I will do whatever you ask if you promise me something," she said sadly. The look in her eyes was broken. "Kill me if he tries to retake me. I can't go back." Michael nodded. "We'll do everything we can to keep you safe, but if we fail, you have my word that I will end your life if it comes to it." "Thank you," she exhaled in relief. She struggled to her feet, using the tree as a crutch. "It is done. All his magic is broken." "She's telling the truth," Quinn confirmed. "There isn't any magic coming from her anymore." I offered a hand to the witch. "You'll have protection in our pack, and we won't let anyone hurt you anymore." She averted her gaze from us as I reached out. "Are you aware that you're naked?" I looked down, laughing a little. Maybe she hadn't been avoiding our eyes but more our nakedness. "It's normal to us, I wasn't even thinking about it. We tear our clothes apart when we shift. I still have some magic left." "Do you want some clothes?" she asked, her cheeks red as her eyes traveled up Michael's legs. Chapter 73. Axel. Once I left Lemon, I gathered all the wolves in town. I sent a few of them to the inn and a few more to run tight patrol around the town, then, I took the rest of them with me. We shifted, wanting to get there as fast as we could. It took me a lot longer than I wanted to get everyone gathered from town, and by the time we set out, the sun had already set. I was running at a pace that had the trees whipping by me so fast they were a blur. I could hear the panting of the wolves behind me. They were having trouble keeping up, but I couldn't slow down. Luna asked for help, and the pack needed us. Lemon wasn't safe if vampires were after the pack. As we crossed over the boundary of the pack land, we made a straight line toward the pack house. A blood-curdling scream sent me skidding to a stop and changing directions. My team needed no directions to follow suit. As we followed the sound, the stench of vampire increased exponentially until a wall of pale, ragged bloodsuckers came into our view. They were faced away from us, so we couldn't see what was beyond them. "I'm going over, start attacking the ones on the outside," I instructed the wolves following me. I coiled myself and jumped high over the heads of the vampires. I saw them look up in confusion as I passed over, which quickly turned into them trying to follow me. However, they weren't able to as my team attacked them from behind, igniting shouts of pain among them. When I landed, my stomach retched at the scene. The scream must have been from Missy because she was leaning over Maddox. He was missing an arm, and it was lying next to him. She was trying to use torn pieces of clothes to stop the bleeding from the stump, but there was too much blood. He was so pale that I couldn't believe he was still alive. If he was, it was only barely. Something that could only be described as a monster was holding Beta Damian by the throat. Damian was fighting the grip on him as best he could. Two wolves broke through the line with me, and I sent them to Missy. "Missy, take these two and get out of here. Now. You might be able to save him but not if you stay here," I directed to Missy. It looked like my words snapped her out of her shock. She stood and got to work. She shifted, nosing under Maddox and getting him to her back. "Take the arm," I called after them. Missy didn't stop running, but one of the others broke off and came back for it, gingerly picking it up in their mouth and following again. The gurgling sound of Damian being choked to death snapped my attention back to him. Without another thought, I launched myself at Damian's enormous foe. I jumped up and bit as hard as I could onto his wrist, sinking into his skin and sinew. He looked at me flatly, not reacting to the pain at all, but his grip loosened enough to give Damian a chance to move. Damian brought an axe down into the monster's forehead, leaving it buried there as the monster released him, and he collapsed to the ground. Damian rubbed his throat and took short ragged breaths trying to breathe again. I jumped away from the monster, landing next to him. "Thank you, Axel," he told me, probably unable to say it out loud. "Of course, Beta," I answered. "Let's do this together." "That's how Maddox ended up like that," he said, nodding over to the blood-soaked soil where Maddox was lying when I arrived. "He's hurt now, even if he can't feel it. We have to try. If this thing gets to the pack house, he'll kill everyone," I pointed out. "Agreed." Together then, Damian agreed. The monster looked like he was trying to figure out whether it was a good idea to pull out the axe. It had gone into his face at an angle and taken out one of his eyes. The blood poured down his face. He still looked like he could go all night. I prepared myself for another assault when Damian came through. I went high with the axes last time. "Let's switch. You go high, and I'll try to cut his legs out from under him. It doesn't matter how big he is if he can't walk." Damian dropped to his hands and knees, and I launched myself into the air, using his back as a platform to jump from. "Goddess, let this work," I prayed with everything I had. I had to get back to Lemon. Aelia. My mouth stung, but he had not broken anything. I was worried Liam might end up killing himself if he didn't stop trying to break free. I could hear bones cracking as he hit the barrier over and over. "You look so good on your knees, Luna," Warwick teased. "No wonder our alpha is so desperate to get you back." I knew he was trying to taunt Liam, but it made me want to vomit. The feeling was cut short as he lifted me to my feet by my hair. He dragged me behind him until we reached the barrier, his grip like a vice that I couldn't get away from no matter how hard I tried. He forced my face to the wall and rubbed it there so Liam could see me better. The impact of my face against the magical wall sent pain up the center of my face like my nose was broken from the force. Pain radiated in waves from his grip on my hair. I tried desperately to hold back tears. I didn't want Liam to witness the pain he had to be feeling through our bond. Liam's face showed the horror he felt at the show Warwick was giving him. "Are you trying not to cry out for your mate, Aelia? You dishonor me." "I thought I was performing admirably here," Warwick exclaimed disappointedly. He ripped my head upwards to look at him as he loomed over me. "I think we can fix that, can't we?" I could not tell what he was planning, and whatever it was would not be pleasant. The pain was making it hard to think and speak, my whole body revolting from the painful control Warwick had on me. With one hand, he reached down to the neckline of my shirt and tore it from me in one motion. His nails lightly grazed my skin as he did, and I was left in just a bra, terrified of what would come next. I tried to cover myself as my heart threatened to beat out of my chest. Warwick's free hand came to my shoulder, and I breathed a short-lived sigh of relief. His face lowered to my neck, and I felt his hot breath near Liam's mark. "Is this the mark you mutts give each other when you find your mate?" he asked Liam coyly, a nasty smile visible from the corner of my eye. "What if I gave her one of my own?" My eyes went wide as I suddenly felt paralyzed. "Just kill me, Warwick," Liam pleaded, his face now desperate as he looked between us. "Kill me however you want. Kill me in front of the pack. Make an example of me. Just leave her alone. I will give myself to you. Just stop." "Ah, that's so much better, Alpha. You're finally beginning to understand your place at our feet. Still, it is too little too late. I will have what I came here for." His lips parted, and I felt his teeth sink into my shoulder near Liam's mark. I couldn't hold back the scream this time, and it felt like it reduced my throat to shreds. I didn't know where the pain stopped, and my body began because I had become one open nerve. The venom spreading through my body felt like flames lapping within me, burning away my soul. I couldn't feel Liam through our bond, I couldn't think, and I wasn't sure how I was still tethered to life. I now knew why it was so hard to bring Damian back from the brink, because it felt like I was now beyond it. I was almost happy I didn't have my wolf anymore because she was spared this all-encompassing agony. I could hear Warwick laughing maniacally and Liam calling out for me, but it was muffled like they were in another room. I tried to focus on Liam's voice, the pain was so much, but I didn't want to leave my mate. "Little Luna, come back to me. Please don't go. You're stronger than this. I need you to hold on." He was repeating it endlessly in my mind, guiding me back to him. When I opened my eyes, there he was. One blue and one black eye, Liam and Gavin. But just out of reach. "Ah, don't tell me the show is already over," Warwick complained, regaining his grip on my hair and pulling me to stand again. I was so raw from the pain of the venom that his tug on my scalp barely registered. He turned me around towards him and caressed his new mark that lay next to Liam's. I recoiled in disgust and spit in his face. "You'll never be half the man that Liam is, and all of this is to compensate for being a coward," I told him in anger. "You lost your mate because you didn't deserve her. You weren't destined for anything." There was more venom in my words than I had ever spat at anyone. Warwick's face flashed in rage, piercing through the arrogant facade he'd kept until now. "You will keep your thoughts about my destiny to yourself. You could never know the depth," I sneered. "I'm sure the rest of your kin did." I was done. Even with my gift, Warwick did not deserve empathy or understanding. He was a plague we needed to wipe the earth of. He has proved time and time again that he is a sick beast with no regard for anyone or anything. His face contorted into a snarl, and he released my hair only to grab my throat in both hands. I couldn't breathe, but it was better than the venom. That residual pain had slowly subsided, and it was replaced with a pleasant warmth. I wondered if it meant I was going to die, and I was losing the ability to feel pain. "You can die now," Warwick shouted, closing his hands around my throat tightly. The warm feeling spread there too, and the pain I'd felt in my throat when I screamed left. Now, I could not draw breath in. I kicked out feebly, but I couldn't reach his body with his arms outstretched in front of him. As my vision became hazy, I saw the orange disappear from the corner of my eye. Where did it go? Was Liam free? Warwick let go with one hand and struck a black, furry blur away from him. Warwick held onto me with one hand as he pushed Liam off again and again with the other. I was able to draw in bits of air as I struggled against Warwick's lessened grip. The watch on my wrist glinted in the moonlight, and my plan resurfaced in my mind. I had been so focused on the pain Warwick was putting me through and Liam's desperation I had forgotten my ace. Now was my chance. I mustered all of my strength and managed to sputter with the very little air left in my lungs. Quo. I hit the ground like a ton of bricks, looking up to see why Warwick dropped me. Liam was on the other side of the clearing, having been thrown away by Warwick before he let go of me. "You were heavy," he stuttered in confusion. He flew down to grab my throat again. My body was heavy, and I couldn't resist, but his grip felt weak. He couldn't lift me no matter how much he tried. That's what the watch was meant to do, I thought in glee. He was my equal, the watch reduced him to my strength. Shakily, I reached into my waistband and drew the knife that Felix had given me while weakly pushing back at his assault. With both of Warwick's hands trying to choke the life out of me, he didn't notice as I drove the knife upward into his chest. I twisted once I felt the hilt come to a stop on his sternum. He stumbled away from me, coughing and pawing at the knife. He ripped it from his chest, only making the wound worse. Blood sprayed from the hole, shooting out of him to blanket the ground. That same black blur flashed across the clearing. This time, it landed next to me. Warwick's body stood in front of me, still on its feet but now missing his head. A heavy thud sounded as Liam dropped the head from his maw, and it rolled toward me. I had no time to react as I was crushed within Liam's arms. His scent cascaded over me, and I was okay. It was over. "Little Luna," he gasped, barely able to stand himself. My body sagged as my energy seemed to flow away. "My Alpha," I cried in a cracked voice. Tears poured from my eyes as relief filled me. Warmth began to invade me as my consciousness tugged. Liam's lips crashed down onto mine. It felt like a bomb to every second and agony Warwick just inflicted. I could feel so many things coming from my mate. Joy and fear, relief and stress, happiness and sadness. He was a storm finally breaking over me. "My brave girl," he cried, not breaking our connection. I reached up, grabbing his face to pull him closer, to taste him better. "Oh, Aelia. It's over. You did it." I wanted to tell him I didn't do it alone. But suddenly, it felt like fireworks were erupting inside me. Liam pulled away with a gasp. His eyes reflected a pink glow, and it felt like I was exploding in his hands. I could feel myself arch away from him. Aelia. The rest of the audiobooks will be uploaded in the next episode. Join us on Patreon to listen to more unlimited audiobooks.